Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, thank you for the possibility that even though just with the help of the technology, but this possibility was given to take part in it. First of all, I had some logistics problems, that's why I couldn't come, but next time I promise to be there in person. And my second note is, I don't know if the participants if any of the participants used to work with András Roman, because I did in 1779. I worked with András Roman. It was a very important period in my life. He was a very well prepared, with very good humor. He was an excellent colleague, excellent boss. I just had very good memories. Just one thing, it was an international event. In 79, 78, we organized an international event about the tombs in Pécs, about its conditions. He was a well-known personality on international level, and that was spiritually, mentally, was a very inspirative period for me. So I just must bow in front of the memory of his. So after this introduction, well, I would like to go to the topic. Well, hopefully I can manage with the technology. I share the... now we can see the presentation itself. So this is the title, Replicas, Buildings and Cases in Debate, and they are German examples. Yes, the first one, what is the theoretical background? Where can be made the borders of the monument protection? What are the criteria of validity? How far we can speak about reconstruction, and where is the beginning of the valid copy? So these are the background questions, and I must go back to refer one of the great personalities of Germany, Georg Dehio, who was a teacher at the beginning of the 20th century, and he dealt with the Heidelberg Palace, and he said we must conserve and not restore. So the validity is the important, and restoration at that time, at the beginning of the 20th century, well, they meant it is purity of the style, and therefore they had very big interventions, and they who protested it. He made a speech on it. At the University of the Empire, and the conclusion of it was that he declared monument protection as of a socialist type, well, it was quite an innovative idea, but it was appreciated by the Emperor William II. But the topic today is what exactly is replica and where are the borders of the concept. Well, I will show you two photos. Is it a replica or not? It is Dresden, Taschenberg Palais. The first one is 1990, with some minimal preservation after the Second World War, because it was bombed in 1945. And then we can see the new outlook of it in 1997. It is part of the big international hotel chain. Is it a new building? Or is it a replica, or what is it? So you should decide it on your own. But anyway, this was created with the cooperation of the local government, monument protection, and the investor. But it is a dominating building concerning the town view. It's a very important element in the town itself. So, from urbanistic purposes, I think it is accepted. And another iconic one, and it is the Reichstag in Berlin. Paul Wallot was the designer. It was built in 1884, 1893, and it was burnt in 1933. It must have been a provocation at that time, and then in 1945 it got seriously damaged during the war fights. This is what it looked like in 1982. So practically, it is on the border of the two Germanys. It was impossible to exit on the eastern part because it was already in East Berlin. So this side was the only available access. The renovation was done with Paul Baumgarten in 1960, and before you can see the space, the square is quite depressing, was depressing for quite a long time, and this is what it looks like now. There were very big debates before the renovation. One of the dominant issue was whether to rebuild the dome. Finally, they rebuilt the dome. The design was made by Sir Norman Foster. The debates were very big. Another architect, Santiago Calatrava, designed a dome, but Foster designed something different one, a huge roof standing on 4 pillars without domes. So the original concept was completely different, and the final outlook is the one. Well, Foster was the idol at that time, and perhaps the ones in Berlin also wanted one. But Calatrava said that it's a plagium by Foster. Gottfried Böhm designed a similar dome in 1988. So Well, finally they managed to create this dome, and this is what it looks like. This is the assembly house of Germany now. You can see the dome inside as well. Perhaps you can see this is the spiral path. You can go to the very top of it, and from here so they can see the members of the parliament from above, and it has a kind of democratic symbol as well. It's a very nice, very successful creation by Foster. This is an interesting example. Yes, what is it? So it's a kind of border case, because they eliminate practically the renovation by Baumgartner, and only the walls were kept and the new functions were built in. So it's difficult to determine whether it's a copy or it's a new construction. We don't really know. The next one, a special case. It is again in Dresden. I like Dresden. I used to have my studies there. So Neumarkt, is it a creation ex nihilo, or a recreation, or a copy, or what is it? We can see the historic picture by Canaletto, painted in 1750, and he had very precise pictures depicting the buildings at that time. So this was the Neumarkt in the old Dresden, center of old Dresden, and we can see the situation in 1931 and 1957. It's quite obvious. We can see just the ruins, and around the ruins there is a big empty space. Here you can see the Freundkirche, the ruins of Freundkirche, the Johanneum building, now Museum of Transport, very interesting building as well. It's a two-floor garage building, but not for cars, but for carriages and old mobiles. And you can see the Elb and the Hofkirche and the buildings built in the 1950s. This is the east-west axis of the inner city. So this is what it looked like when I was a student. And after the two Germanies were joined, there was a very big debate, and the final decision was to create a town view replica, so that the intact town view was restored, revived with urbanistic purposes. Well, it was designed as it was designated to be a rehabilitation area. Well, it's not a 100% replica, but just the dominant buildings, the facade of the dominant building were meant to be restored. Well, more or less, well, mostly the facades were rebuilt, and partly also the internal spaces. So here you can see different blocks, the yellow one to the west of Freundkirche. This is on the historic photo, and this is you can see the historic situation and the new one, so we can say that it's nicer than ever. There is one more floor in the attic built. Originally, also partly also the attic was built, not the second one, but here we have a second floor in the attic. Well, it's your decision whether you like it or not. Another block, the fifth block, is the Schutzhaus. Composer lived there. And now the next one is the Freundke as the center of Neumarkt unit. Well, it was reconstructed. Replica. We don't really know what it is, really. This is what it looked like in 1958. In front of the ruin, we can see Luther standing. I'm standing here and I can't stand anywhere else. What you can see in the background, the strange dome. It is named Lemon Squeeze. This dome somehow survived. Nobody knows how it happened. So these two parts existed, and a heap of stones in between. This is what remained from the church. In this situation in 1958, I would like to call the attention. Here in the sanctuary, there is a big crack. The ruin is still standing. In 1990, in the first wave of the reunion, there was a conference organized about the reconstruction of the Freundkirche, and there was a colleague dealing with statics. One idea was keep the ruins as it is, as a memento mori, recalling what it was like during or after the war. But the other one, if they rebuild it and keep it intact, then it will collapse because of the crack, because of the frost, because of the rainwater. Well, it will collapse as well. So it's quite interesting that it was the static colleague who voted for a very severe intervention to support the supporting things. Already in 1946, there was a donation charity action already starting in 1946. Before the war, the church was there was a restoration and documentation, and it survived luckily. So it proved to be very useful when rebuilding the ruin. And another aspect, that Hans Nadler professor had a very severe fight during decades protesting against removing the ruins. Because in the communist system they wanted to take away the ruins, but luckily Nadler managed to keep the ruins there. As a young architect, I was very lucky to work with Hans Nadler, and I had lots of discussions with him, and he said, patience, just as long as the ruins are there, we must preserve them, we must conserve these, and then after the reunion it will be rebuilt. He was very optimistic, and he was proven right. So in 1987, a civil initiative started, and then the new donation started, and in 91-92, a foundation was created for the reconstruction or rebuilding of the ruins. So this is the background, and concerning the reconstruction, the first point is that Frauenkirche must be rebuilt by using the original existing material according to original historic designs. And the other one, to respect the theory but to use modern technology, stability, building physics must be taken into consideration. And the third one is to take the needs of the 21st century into consideration. It is used as a concert room and used by the church as well. And therefore, the supporting the service rooms must be provided. So this is how the reconstruction started. You can see the dome with the Nikkei figure on the top, and the scaffolding in 2000, still without a dome. And then in 2003, there is scaffolding on the top part, but with the dome. And we can distinguish the original parts with the newly constructed ones. The new ones are just shining, they are very bright. I will go back to it. Well, here we can see many people tend to think that the darkness of the old parts is because of a ceasefire. It is partly true. There is another component, that this sandstone which was used in the original construction, it comes from a Saxonian quarry, and it contains a lot of iron, and the result is that the stone is oxidated, and that's how it gets its dark color. So the outcome of it was that within a few decades, like it happened in the case of the old stones, the same will happen with the new stones in some decades as well. It is the fourth dimension of the building. The stone itself works, and very old people from Dresden who really appreciate the outcome, they still see what is new and what is old, but within a few decades, the tourist who doesn't know very much about the history practically won't see the difference. It's very interesting. The dimension of time is the fourth dimension. I would like to speak about the technical questions of the reconstruction. It follows the historic constructions, but makes some corrections at some places. The one who designed originally Frauenkirche, he was a carpenter practically. He was not a builder. He was not a. He was a. So originally they wanted to make it from a wood construction, and taking durability into consideration, it was built from stone. So George Berg transformed it into stone. But what was strange in this situation, that of course the statics were not really well designed, and therefore the dome was not properly supported, and perhaps that's why it collapsed very soon. Now they used bigger blocks, and and in this way the supporting ability of the building is much stronger, and the dome sets on the walls. There is a steel frame built in, and the chorus is supported not by wooden pillars but by steam supporting elements. There was a digitalized design process. There are lots of there is lots of information in the home site of the foundation. This is the outcome. Beautiful picture. The next one is another geographic region, Berlin. And this is the Humboldt Forum, the former Royal Palace, Emperor Palace, reconstruction and the replica of it. What was done here, like in the wall, it was burnt, there was a ceasefire, it was bombed. What was interesting, that in 1991, the government made a board and the head of this board was Hannes Swoboda from Vienna. And the suggestion was to rebuild the former palace in the shape as it existed before the demolition. In this way, we can say it's 100%, almost 100% replica. Some little cellars were kept, nothing more. The decision process, it was a civil initiative supporting association in 1992, and they proved to be very persuasive, and in 2002 the budget was given 667 million euros given by the parliament, and public donation 105 million, very huge amount. There was a tender written in 2008. Italian architect Franco Stella was the winner for the reconstruction, and the construction started in 2003. In 2001, the building was built in digital way, but now, as I have heard, it has been, the inner courtyard has been open for the public. Due to the pandemic, the internal spaces cannot be visited. It's a very modern building from architectural aspect. Iron-forced concrete supporting system. Well, from professional aspect, it is not a historic monument. It's a replica. How to use this huge building? No emperor at the moment. We don't want an emperor, but how to use it? 100 square meter is the gross floor. And the decision is that it's a museum showing cultures outside Europe, and also an exhibition for children as temporary exhibitions. So it's a museum island, and it is an organic part of it now. A new dimension is given by this building. Well, the opening, because there is a very big debate about the treasures taken from the empires. So it is not really known how the treasures got here, through the British or through the Germans. So there is some moral issue around them. So what about the history of the palace? So the history of the palace. The palace was started to be built in 1443, and it has a very nice Renaissance. Since 1538, it has had a nice, or it had a nice Renaissance courtyard, and surrounded by a unit of buildings. The present state was given to the building in 1698, and it existed until the beginning of the 19th century. All the important architects in Berlin worked on the building between 1845-53. A dome was built on the top of the building. This what it looks like in the town view context. We can see the Bath Academy, square building, in classicist style. It was pulled down, and very big debates are going on how to reconstruct it. And this is the Royal Palace, what it looked like before the First World War. The two courtyards and the royal stable. So this is a central element. And this is the situation now. This is the reconstructed situation. Franco Stella made some alterations that in the minor courtyard, a closed covered foyer is created. There is an open passage in the middle to both ways. It is possible to enter. There is an entrance exit, so it is possible to walk across. And here is the Schütterhof. The inner facades are rebuilt. This is what it looked like in 1945. When President Truman was here, President Truman is sitting here, sitting in these white clothes. He is sitting here. Well, we can see that quite a lot of fragments were still existing, and we can see the dome part. A lot of construction parts were existing. It could have been restored at that time. There were lots of gestures given to Germans after the war, and there was even an exhibition in the ground floor. So the first big cultural event was downstairs of the building. Nevertheless, in 1950, it was exploded. For quite a long time, this is what looked like. This was the tribune, and this was the procession where the processions took part on the 1st of May. For a very long time, this building was existing on part of, well, it was an interesting thing. It was the Palast der Republik, the palace of the Republic. It was a kind of cultural center. It looked very elegant in socialist dimensions, a big concert hall, and it was the building of the parliament of DDR. It was not a bad building. The only problem is that it was built not on the right place. And this palace, so this was pulled down after the reunion. There were big debates about it as well. The supporting system was covered with asbestos, steel covered with asbestos. And then it was said that the asbestos is dangerous, so it must be eliminated as a whole. So with lots of effort, they pulled it down. So this is what it looked like, replica. This is the western facade with the dome. We can see the TV tower in the back. So in 2002, Bundestag decided to build it. Not as a whole, because this is the eastern facade. And as you can see by the designs of Franco Stella, it's a contemporary facade. So on this side of the building, the decision was made that not a replica would be built on the eastern side, but a temporary one. So this museum and the temporary museums will be organized here. This is the new passage in the middle and the Schütterhof, the big Baroque representative courtyard. This is the western hall, the entrance hall, a bit empty, but well, this is the internal courtyard rebuilt completely. They decided to make a replica, a copy of the old one. In history, sometimes it happens. This is the Eosander portal, which exists twice. The original one, when the palace was pulled down in 1950, was removed, and it was built in the assembly building of DDR, saying that the Socialist Republic was declared from here. While at the same time, from the Reichstag, the Republic was declared. So it's quite strange and a contradiction that two kinds of republics were declared. So therefore, this portal, this section was removed and built in. And this one is a replica. So in this way, this section, this portal exists twice. So this is what I wanted to tell you about it. I hope that you can a bit understand at least part of the wide scale of German replicas.